Hello and welcome to the Kanawha Valley Hustlers podcast. This is Joe Justice, and for our first podcast in 2025, I want to try to up your game because we are going to thrive in 2025. And to start things off, let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt disappointed by someone not returning a favor, or been surprised when somebody, maybe they asked more of you than you were willing to give? Did that leave you kind of confused and not sure how to react? So if you watch to the end of this video, I'm going to give you kind of a reframe and understanding of relationships that will help you out in this area and help you make effective use of relationships so that you can put people in an appropriate category to get what it is that you're trying to get out of them. See, the biggest mistake that people make when it comes to relationships is confusing the difference between a reciprocal relationship and a transactional relationship. And it's way more common than you think. You probably do it all the time. And to be honest with you, you're probably not going to like hearing what I have to say about it today, because people confuse these relationships, and that confusion is always the root to hurt feelings and, not coming through, people being confused and being disappointed. And it all really comes down to that. So first of all, let's talk about what is the difference between a reciprocal relationship and a relationship that's based on transactional or transactional relationships. So let me give you an example of some reciprocal relationships. A reciprocal relationship would be something like the members of your BNI chapter. It's your spouse or your partner, or maybe it's a group of friends that you go out camping with. So imagine a group of friends. So reciprocal relationships are based on mutual benefit. They're long-term, they're trusting, they're ongoing, and there's an exchange of value that's not direct. So that's a perfect description of a spousal relationship that's in its proper position. So it's emotional. It doesn't keep score. It's not trying to make sure that one side of the ledger is balanced with the other side of the ledger. You're both in a spousal relationship. You're both trying to help each other in the best way that you possibly can. BNI chapter. The members give each other referrals and they send business back and forth to each other. But they're not necessarily, it's not the same as like a sales relationship where you get a commission, right? BNI chapter, you're all working together towards common goals, but you're not keeping track as far as like a ledger where it's like, I will give you a referral, now you have to give me a referral. You're all working together in a reciprocal relationship, and you're building long-term trust. That's a reciprocal relationship. Or the other example was a camping trip. So you all kind of get together. Nobody makes any rules. Nobody says, Frank, your job is the firewood. Bob, your job is the camp stove and all that. In other words, everybody just kind of gets together. Everybody pitches in and they work together. So that's a reciprocal relationship. So let's go ahead and let's talk about the transactional relationship. What is that? Those are really simple. Transactional relationships are like an employee to employer relationship. It's an exchange. It's a direct exchange. It's the kind of relationship that has a specific exchange that's usually short term. So employer-employee. You work for me for 8 hours and I will give you X amount of pay. That's it. Or I will give you benefits in exchange for your time. I will give you a wage in exchange for your time. If you sign up, 20 new clients, then I will give you X amount of commission. That's direct exchange. To simplify that even, to kind of really bring that home, to consider a store clerk. You're not building rapport with your store clerk. You walk in, you say, here's the thing I want. The price tag says it. You give them the money and then you walk out. That's a clerk. Maybe they help you out with assistance or something to help to find the thing that you're looking for, but you're there to get something. You have an exchange value and then that's it. Now, what happens is a lot of times people confuse these relationships. And to be fair to people, there is a little bit of overlap. I mean, all employee-employee relationships, they can be reciprocal. You can have an employee for 20, 30, 40 years, and you can work together and you can be friends outside of business and so forth. So you might begin to think of that as a reciprocal relationship, but it's not. It is fundamentally a transactional relationship. And whenever you're dealing with somebody, whenever you're working with somebody, you have to accept the relationship for what it is, not what you want it to be, not what you imagine it is, but what it actually is. Best example that I can give of this is when you begin to treat a spousal relationship as a transactional relationship. That's the beginning of the end of many relationships. As soon as one partner begins, having expectations that, the spouse, I did this for my spouse, now they need to do that. As soon as that starts to happen, that's when you start getting angry with each other. That's when expectations start falling short, and that's when lots of emotions start driving your behaviors, and you go into a really negative place because you've turned what should be a reciprocal relationship into a transactional relationship. And very similarly, you see it a lot of times with employee-employee relationships. Let's say you've had an employee for a long time. They're a good employee. They're great. They're friends. You get along. Maybe you go out. You have dinner from time to time. And then you call them one Saturday and you ask them to help you move. Well, that's a reciprocal relationship. That's not a transactional relationship. You can't get mad at them if they say that they're busy. You can't get mad at them if they say that they don't want to. You probably shouldn't put that on them to begin with. It's a mistake to do that because you've taken what was a very clear-cut transactional relationship. I do work for you, you pay me money, and you've turned it into reciprocal, or you've treated it like it was reciprocal. And that's where the mistake comes in, and that's where feelings get hurt, and that's where that's usually the beginning of the end, and where things start to fall apart. And you usually find it confusing because you might not think it's a big deal to ask your employee to come over and help out on the weekend. We're friends, we do this, we do that, but fundamentally, it's a transactional relationship. If you wanted your employee to come over on the weekend, if you asked them and offered to pay them, I'm sure they'd have no problem in doing it. And you know what? It's entirely possible that you've got a really good relationship that they probably wouldn't get upset to begin with. But that's usually the root of relationships that begin to fall apart. So it's very important as we're entering into 2025, and we're going to thrive in 2025. Let's get our relationships in order. Let's make sure that everyone is functioning at their best and doing the best that they can. Recognize the type of relationship that you're in. Treat the other person in the way that they're expected to be treated based on that relationship. And then you'll be able to meet expectations and avoid disappointment. So keep that in mind as we're moving forward. Thank you so much for watching. This is Joe Justice, the Kanawha Valley Hustler, reminding you to hustle hard, hustle smart, and hustle with a smile.